We was family, Tilly Jackson.
You Foreman boys ain't no kind of family I want.
Kill him, Arthur!
You want that?
I want him to go away and tell the remaining of his cousins and the clowns he rides with to leave me alone.
There's no better mix of sweet and seemingly innocent with a hint of hell to pay if she was ever crossed. Tilly Jackson is the most extraordinary woman out of all the women within the Vanderlyn gang's ranks. She's often seen as kind, loyal, and even forgiving when there's no real forgiveness to be rewarded.
Now, you think you can do that, Anthony? Or should I slit your throat and just save us all the bother?
I'll leave you alone. History is done.
History is never done.
For most of us that has played the story of Red Dead Redemption 2, we know Tilly is one of the few that actually made it out of a life that many of her brothers and sisters within the Vanderlyn gang unfortunately didn't make it out of. And she even made it out into an honest life. An honest life that, dare I say it, is even a little luxurious, marrying a lawyer from Haiti and having a daughter with him. She settles down into a very comfortable life, one that doesn't require her to constantly look over her shoulder or lay her head on a small mat in the grass underneath the open stars. A life that no one would have ever expected given her very sad upbringing. An upbringing that, while not too different from other members within the Vanderlyn gang, is one that is possibly even worse than most, robbing her of the chance to experience and thrive under the innocence of childhood. While we don't know every single detail of the early years of her life, what we do know is this. Tilly was a daughter of a former slave, and at the age of 12, she was kidnapped by the Foreman gang, who she ended up being stuck with for some years. Yet again, falling into the massive umbrella of mystery, we don't know what she got up to or what she did with the gang itself while riding with them. However, it is somewhat fair to say her time with them was far from pleasant. Tilly suffered years of abuse at the hands of Foreman gang members, culminating into one fateful day. A day where a man by the name of Malcolm forced himself on her. This resulted in Tilly slicing the man's throat wide open and fleeing. Possibly the first time she ever stood up for herself, this was a valuable lesson for the young Tilly. She learned to not trust people and do whatever it took to defend herself and ensure survival. While a small victory for her, this was an action that didn't sit so well with the rest of the Foreman gang members, most notably of all a man by the name of Anthony Foreman, leader of the Foreman gang, who just so happened to be the cousin of the now slain Malcolm. Anthony pops up in the story from time to time, a ghost to Tilly's past, a reminder of the hell she was forced to suffer through. Because of Malcolm's death, Anthony swore revenge on Tilly. He makes an initial appearance during the chapter of Horseshoe Overlook in Valentine, where he threatens Tilly, and is only when Arthur intervenes, Anthony decides to drop it, at least for now.
You're making a big mistake, Tilly Jackson.
Just get lost.
I ain't doing this with you right now.
Continuing on with Tilly's earlier years, it was sometime after falling out with the Foreman gang that young Tilly was picked up by none other than Dutch Vanderlyn himself. Dutch took her in, protected her, and even taught her how to read. This gave Tilly an introduction to Dutch and the Vanderlyn gang that was no different than Arthur and John. Naturally, this led to her having a very high opinion and an immense amount of love and respect for Dutch that was very similar to the high regard her two adopted brothers viewed Dutch in. Eventually, based off how the workings of the gang goes, and due to her being, well, I would say just being a woman, she, like the rest of the women within the camp, fell under the direct supervision of Miss Grimshaw, performing various chores around the camp and for other gang members, ensuring the gang is working from the ground up. It appears Tilly had no issues with doing her chores, but it was due to Miss Grimshaw's overbearing and aggressive nature that there was a source of tension between the two of them. This is apparent by Tilly having a conversation with Arthur where she jokes about how Dutch would feel towards her killing Miss Grimshaw.
How are you?
Alive? And you?
Fine. Let me ask you a question. If I was to kill Miss Grimshaw, would Dutch be mad?
I think, as a general rule, Dutch likes to avoid murder within the camp. I mean, there was that one time, but he was a traitor. But Miss Grimshaw, well, Dutch has a soft spot for her.
I thought as much. Was she always like this?
I ain't quite old enough to know.
No, of course. So as long as you've known her?
She's always liked her swill of vinegar.
I'd like to give her a swig of arsenic.
We'll just do it discreetly.
I will.
It appears to be nothing more than a harmless joke at first, and it's really felt like a joke with how innocent and calm she says it. Her childlike annoyance, I guess you can call it, makes it feel like a joke, but given a childhood of abuse and already used to taking a life, there's gotta be some sense of how much of this is really a joke. But regardless, whether if there was a certain amount of tension between her and Miss Grimshaw, and if it went deeper than just how aggressive and demanding Miss Grimshaw can be in ensuring the women handle their chores, but we cannot mistake that for her not caring for these women under her care, or at the very least Tilly, since Miss Grimshaw is the first person to notice and jump to her rescue later on when Tilly goes missing, kidnapped by the Foreman gang.
Mr. Morgan! Mr. Morgan, we have a problem. A real problem. It's Tilly.
What?
She's been taken by them Foreman brothers she used to run with. Come along!
The Foreman brothers, what are they doing here?
Well, I don't know what they've been doing here, but I can tell you what they're going to be doing here. Dying.
I've always loved the opening sequence to this mission as well. Seeing Miss Grimshaw worked up and grabbing weapons ready to go on a hunt to get her girl back, it solidified that this is a family. Or maybe Miss Grimshaw genuinely believed she owned Tilly as she tells Anthony Foreman she's hers as he lays down in the mud.
You see this girl? You leave her alone.
She killed my cousin.
Your goddamn cousin had it coming, Anthony Foreman!
I don't care if she shot your daddy and cooked your mama for breakfast. She's mine. She ain't yours.
You know, a friend of mine, he always says, revenge is a fool's game.
Either way, it definitely shows that the way she yells at the women to get back to work and do what needs to be done around the camp, it's not just Miss Grimshaw barking orders and being a badass around the camp with that facade ending there. Now, Miss Grimshaw is really about that life, and just like Dutch, Hosea, Arthur, or really anyone else within the gang is willing to put it all on the line for their fellow gang members, Miss Grimshaw is willing to do the same. For the most part, Tilly's story ultimately ends here with the death, or if you choose to spare him, Arthur scaring Anthony Foreman. At least that's the bigger part of her story. She was crucial in making sure Jack was kept safe at the end of the game when Abigail was kidnapped by Milton, at a time that was the most perilous considering the gang was spectacularly falling apart. John was believed to be dead, Arthur's time was running out fast, and if it wasn't for Tilly's own bravery and quick thinking, Jack may well have required some saving just as his mom did. Her bravery and strong will is really one of the more impressive ones, and she is at times pretty vulnerable. There's a side mission you can do where Arthur and Bill take down a stagecoach. Initially it was meant to be with the help of Tilly, who was supposed to be the one to stop the wagon. But plans quickly fell apart when it was revealed Tilly was going through Bill's old army paperwork revealing his real name. And of course, Bill through Tilly's association with the Foreman gang and how she can be a traitor at any point. Ultimately, this just leads to some bickering between the two of them that ended up with Bill just throwing his plan away altogether and doing his own thing and stopping the stagecoach.
You follow orders, you stay alive. That's what they used to tell me in the army.
They kicked you out of the army.
They did not.
I beg to differ, Marion.
Have you been going through my things?
You shouldn't have left it out.
Can you believe this, Morgan? I don't trust her any more than I trust that Kieran boy. I never have. Running with them Foreman boys all them years. She could turn on us any minute.
Just shut your mouth or I'll shut it for you. You have no damn clue.
All right, just take it easy, you two. Get your minds on what matters so we do this right.
It's one of the more memorable gang activities due to Bill's dramatic reaction, but my personal favorite conversation with Tilly is her revealing to Arthur that she's afraid of being down in Clemens Point. She's uneasy at the thought of being in the South, with it reminding her of the terrible formative years she had to endure.
What we doing so far south, Arthur? I don't like it.
Seems as good a place as any to get chased by the law, Miss Tilly.
You ain't so dumb as that, Arthur. I'm a Negro.
I know. I'll keep you safe, Miss Tilly.
My mama was a slave until she was 15 years old, Arthur.
I'll keep you safe, miss. You have my word.
Her background and exposure to the racism her mom and possibly she even suffered for, compounded by the fear of Anthony Foreman and the whole gang's wrath for her protecting herself, only for it to all end with her no longer being an outlaw and almost completely making it off scot-free, makes her story one of the most inspiring and heartwarming out of them all. that's pretty much the story on Tilly Jackson. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What is your opinion on Tilly, and what is another character from Red Dead Redemption 2 you want to see next? I've said it before, I'm working on Josiah Trelawney, and I'm also working on a couple different other angles when it comes to Arthur Morgan and the Van der Linde gang at large, but I'm always open to suggestions and recommendations. But like always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.